fungi are everywhere, but then how do you work with them to save the planet?
Yeah. So I guess I'll start out really big and then link back to something I already said. So when when I'm working with fungi to save the planet, I really look to nature to figure out how to do that, right? Because all of this stuff is already happening in nature. And if we pay attention, and that's how we can learn. So when I look to nature, I learned that there's different ways, like there's different types of fungi, but they can be broadly categorized into like how they get their food. So I'll give some examples and then link that to how we can work with them for, cleaning up pollution. So one major type of fungi are the decomposer fungi. They're the guys that, break down a dead tree once the tree's died and fallen over. They break down leaves once they've fallen, right? So they eat dead stuff. What they're
Mm.
after is the carbon in that dead stuff. And they get their food by releasing enzymes just like we do, in our digestive system to break down our food. They release those enzymes into the environment, into the, log or whatever, fallen leaves. And that breaks that, thing down into simpler, essentially sugar, essentially food that the fungus then takes in and eats. As they're doing that, they're turning this, dead tree into ultimately soil. Like that's what you end up with. Like we would not have soil if it were not for decomposer fungi,
So there's
right?
decomposer fungi, but then, like, let's say there's like a bunch of plastic in the ocean, right? Or there's a
Yeah.
bunch of oil spilled somewhere. Can mushrooms fix that?
Yes. And the
Wow.
reason is that plastic is made from oil and
Oh,
oil
yeah.
is made from dead stuff that got compressed for
Fossil
millions of years.
fuels.
Right? So do you
Okay.
see the connection? So
Yeah.
basically, decomposer fungi love eating dead stuff. That's how they get their food. And what makes them special and different than bacteria is that they can break down the most complex carbon. So, like, most bacteria can't break down lignin inside of trees that makes them rigid and hard, but certain decomposer fungi can. And so those
Hmm.
same decomposer fungi that can break down, trees, can also often be applied to break down everything from any petrochemical type of pollution, but also anything made out of petrochemicals or fossil fuels, from like, agricultural pesticides and stuff. I don't know if people know, but like we make so much of what we use out of fossil fuels. So plastic is made out of fossil fuels. A lot of stuff in our homes is made out of fossil fuels. A lot of chemicals used in agriculture also made out of fossil fuels. And so these, in terms of like how can we work with fungi to clean up, pollution. Well, if it's a type of pollution that is organic, and what I mean by that isn't like, it hasn't had chemical pesticides and fertilizers applied to it. I mean, it's carbon based, so it's made out of something that was once alive. Then decomposer fungi are probably going to be our best bet to break that apart, eat it, and in
Mhm.
doing so, break it down, like actually transform it into something safer and less toxic.
So how are we as like everyday people, how are we contributing to this? I mean, I can think of a few ways with like, our oil or our pesticides that we use on our lawns or something, but how are we contributing to the mess?
Hmm. Yeah, it's I just want to say I do feel like it's tough as individuals because we don't have too I don't think that most people feel like they have too much choice, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people are struggling to get by, and so maybe you want to buy the like more expensive, less toxic thing, but then it, doesn't quite work out. So, Yeah, so I don't want to put too much on individuals in terms of like
Right.
what they're able to do. Obviously do as much as you're able to, but where we really can make a difference is when we act together
Hmm.
collectively, like the fungi, actually. you
Oh,
know?
so we have to
So
be like
yeah,
the
I
fungi.
definitely, yeah. So
Okay.
when we work together to change policies, when we work together to, influence things, say no to really destructive environmental practices, advocate for and help bring into reality more regenerative practices, I think that's the best way to go.
All right. So how does this work? Like, let's say there's a spill on the beach. Do you just go scatter some mushrooms and it'll clean up all the oil? How does that happen?
So first you have to figure out which fungi will help. So which ones would, eat not only eat the oil or whatever the pollutant is, but will do so in the conditions that you're dealing with, right? So like a common misapplication that I've seen is like with the oil spill into like the ocean, people dropping a fungus that does not live in the ocean into the
Okay.
ocean and it can't survive, right? So like if you want to work with fungi to clean up pollution, you got to learn how to essentially cultivate and like help grow a bunch of different types of fungi. Yeah, and on that, and create the conditions that'll help them grow. So with like the oil spill into the ocean example, what would make more sense would be to scoop up all that oil in the ocean on something like straw, like some like, material that decomposer fungi like to eat anyways, and then on land with more control where you can like, give the fungus what it needs, then inoculate it, which is just the term we use to describe adding the fungi into the mix. Um, and then you got to keep testing and see what's happening. You can't assume that like if you just dropped some mushrooms into the oil that it's done its thing. You gotta test and make sure that it's fully been broken down.
Wow, that's so fascinating. And we're out here in Los Angeles, and I know that what's on everyone's mind out here is how are we going to clean up all the toxic debris that is
Yeah,
sitting on the ground? I mean,
yeah,
I literally am not going outside to exercise, and it's been almost 5, 6 months since the fires. I'm still like, I don't care because there's debris on the ground. It could kick up into the air. So,
yeah.
are you please tell me you guys are working on something to,
We are. We
yeah?
are. Yeah, yeah. So I've actually been working with an organization called Co-Renewal for many years, and they have actually developed a bunch of amazing technology to work with fungi to clean up after fires. So
Wow.
it actually that those projects started in Northern California, where there were just like catastrophic wildfires over the past few years, and then so we've banded together with them to bring some of that and some of the research I've carried out in LA specifically to LA to help after the wildfires. And yeah, so basically, what it looks like so far is co-renewals come up with these myco-wattles. That just means you've got fungi in these wattles. So wattles are
Say that
used.
again, because that's a
Yeah,
hilarious, cute term.
it's super
Micro
cute.
waddles?
Myco.
Myco. Oh, myco
Myco is
waddles.
referring to fungi, and then wattle is just these like straw stuffed sausages. People have
Strausages?
seen them.
Are you
You've
guys
seen
naming
them, I'm
dog treats
sure.
or mushrooms?
No, you've seen them. I'm sure you've seen
They're
them since
such
the
cute
fire.
names.
Yeah, they're green or they're like made out of burlap, and there's these there you'll see them like lining highways and stuff, but you've definitely seen them since the fires
I mean, the
because
only
they're
picture I have in my head is like an anime Mario Brothers mushroom. Like, is that's not what they look like?
no, no,
Okay.
it looks like a big tube on a hill, you
Huh.
know? And so people they're already used not with the fungi, but the straw stuffed like tubes have already
Strausages.
are already used a lot to prevent runoff of like toxic stuff into the water.
Really?
And then this innovation is adding fungi that'll actually help break down and stabilize some of that, like, toxic ash and stuff. So that's Co-Renewal's technology that they've developed, and we're working with them to add in the stuff I've developed around the soil cleanup specifically. So then we're covering these multiple bases, right? We're trying to prevent like toxic runoff all over the place, and we're
Yeah.
also trying to clean up the soil in place. And I think people, I mean, I hear you. It's like it's really sad and scary. Just when houses burn, when cars burn, there is so much toxic stuff that gets released into the air, into the water, and into the soil. And a lot of that stuff just will not go away on its own. Like we have to do something to clean it up. And the problem is, right, there just aren't as many resources being offered anymore for remediation, for cleanup and testing. And in the first place, the most common cleanup method for hazardous waste, for any type of waste and for contaminated soil, is to literally just move it somewhere else and dump it there, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't actually clean up the problem. It just moves it somewhere else.